Hello, I'm John Benson, and I'm going to try to do a short video on some of the similarities between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It's the new one on Prime. They call it something like the Horrifying Adventures or something like that to differentiate it from the previous 90s sitcom-ish Sabrina the Teenage Witch and whatever else, the Archie Comics Teenage Witch. Sabrina the Teenage Witch has gone much further. It has comic booky elements and um, settings, the way it's shot, and sometimes the writing, the the kind of simple or simplistic uh, dialogue at times is a little comic booky, and the stylings of the hair and certain things can have a comic book stylism to them, but it really has um, done much more than that. The style in particular, the new Sabrina the Teenage Witch really does a fantastic job in looking so good, so rich. The costumes and the sets and everything um, have a fantastic look to them. You can really tell they put a lot of time and effort into putting together the sets and the costumes and the hairstyles and the makeup and everything about it. Everything has a look to it, and it's a rich look, and there's a certain art look to it, a certain comic book element that they keep, which is from a comic book. So I get all of that, but you can certainly tell the difference. Good segue here into Buffy the Vampire Slayer between the production quality of something like Sabrina, this new Sabrina the Teenage Witch, um, with such lush settings, props, costumes, everything, as to something that was done starting in 1997 and went to the 2000s, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which has a much more TV show set, especially the first season, and the special effects and the look and the quality of it. They did a great job on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of my favorite all-time shows ever, but it certainly doesn't have the production qualities of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It doesn't have that lushness. It doesn't have all of that costuming, that look, that dark look all the time. Uh, the lighting is fantastic in Sabrina. In Buffy, they do many things, um, but some of it is just cheap. I mean, there are many scenes in Buffy the Vampire Slayer where it is just obvious that when they're talking at nighttime in the cemetery or something like that, that it's a filter. It's shot during the daytime. There are bright spots out in the back, brown and things. It's not bright like sunlight bright, but you can see the background. You can see the whole background. It is not as nicely done, and that's just one of the maybe productions, the shot, the actual camera work, but the sets too. I mean, the sets on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, especially the first season, there was a lot of shots at the school. There was a lot of shots at Buffy's house, and but there weren't a whole lot. There weren't a whole lot of scenes or sets. And look, this is done in a Hollywood studio. They have whatever sound stage that they were working with, and they did a great job with it. But there's so much more that is done now, and a lot of it is done with CG on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What they're able to do with CG and other production values, other things with the cameras and the ability, with this to make the sky always look dark, and it just has a much better look to it, and the quality is much higher. But that doesn't mean it's a better show. that just is one part of things. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer definitely got better as it went on. You could kind of tell the production values kept getting better and better in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But there are other similarities, not just contrast, really, not a similarity as to the production value. But in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there's the female lead and her crew or her group of people that are going around, and the same is true in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So there's Sabrina, who's the lead, but there is this Roz character who is kind of comparable to Willow, and Willow has power and more power as you find out through Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And the same happened with Roz. She had some power at the beginning, but it gets developed more and more. There is the goofy guy who's there to save or be saved as it goes. And each show has that element to it, or that character. And more with the character. And they're both, groups that are trying to save their small town, whatever that is, in their different shows. And each show does have some ideas or where they put the evil. The evil is, it's kind of this kind of back to school specialish kind of thing where there is kind of a learning point or kind of a fable story where the evil is an embodiment of something that in our culture, society, that we take as bad, and they show, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Whether it's too much authority in terms of, in Buffy, that would be the Principal Skinner, or the mayor later on, or in Sabrina, it's Blackwood, and or there are other characters too, but they have those relations in mind. And there's also the way that Buffy's done in a serial way. I mean, Buffy was one of the innovators of that style of TV, where it wasn't just a one-off episode where everything went back to the way things were at the end of the episode, kind of like The Simpsons, where no matter what job Homer takes, whether it's selling pizzas or whatever he's doing, or goes on a becomes a sea captain or whatever, at the end of the show he's always back at the nuclear plant. They can tie things up so it doesn't matter what episode you watch, you're at the same place. That is not true in a serial. Buffy tried to keep some episodic elements to it, but as it went on, it got more and more serial, and it really kind of went to the place, kind of soap opera, where it was good to know what happened before. Sabrina really runs with that idea. It completely drops the episodic nature in so many ways, and it runs with the episodes. So many things change in every episode. It is very difficult to pick up from one episode to, you can't, virtually impossible to skip episodes and understand what's going on. But they both do that kind of serial thing. So I know there are many more references. Feel free to comment on the different similarities, or all of the different similarities, all the similar similarities between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sabrina. I know there are many more out there, and but thank you for watching, and maybe I'll do more on this another time. I just had that in my head and went with it. All right, so see you next time. Thank you.